Repair attempts. When someone messes up and then actually circles back to fix it, that's not common. Most people either pretend nothing happened or turn the original issue into a bigger fight about how you brought it up. But someone who's safe to love knows how to repair. They'll check in after an argument, even a small one. They'll say something like, "Hey, I was harsh earlier. Can we talk about that?" Or they'll use humor to break the tension without dismissing your feelings. It's not about grand apologies, it's about consistently closing the loop instead of letting resentment pile up. Here's what's wild. Research from the Gottman Institute found that successful couples aren't the ones who don't fight. They're the ones who know how to repair after conflict. The ability to reconnect after disconnection is the single strongest predictor of relationship longevity, and it shows up in tiny moments. After a tense conversation, they'll reach for your hand. They'll send a silly meme an hour later. They'll ask if you're okay before bed. These aren't dramatic gestures. They're consistent bids for reconnection. What makes repair attempts so powerful is that they require emotional maturity and secure attachment. The person has to regulate their own defensiveness, remember that connection matters more than being right, and tolerate the discomfort of vulnerability. Most people can't do this. They either shut down completely or need to win the argument before they'll soften. Someone who repairs quickly isn't avoiding conflict. They're prioritizing the relationship over their ego, and that's rare. Steady warmth. You know how some people are intensely affectionate one day and distant the next? Someone who's actually safe doesn't operate like that. Their warmth is consistent. They're kind to you on boring Tuesdays, not just during date nights or when they want something. You don't have to earn their affection or wonder if today's the day they'll pull away. Their care is predictable, which sounds unromantic until you've dated someone whose feelings change with the weather. This consistency shows up in small ways. They greet you the same way whether they've had a good day or a terrible one. They're not withholding affection as punishment during disagreements. They don't need drama or crisis to feel connected to you. It's this steady, reliable warmth that never spikes into love bombing, but also never drops into coldness. And the thing is, our culture romanticizes intensity. We're taught that passion means unpredictability, that real love should feel like a roller coaster. But intensity isn't intimacy. Intensity is just your nervous system responding to inconsistency. People with secure attachment offer this kind of steady presence. They learned early on that love doesn't have to be earned or constantly proven, so they give affection freely and consistently. They're not performing closeness, they're just being close. And after you've been with someone whose moods dictate the entire emotional temperature of the relationship, steady warmth feels like coming home. Conflict tolerance. Most people think they want someone who never fights with them. What you actually want is someone who can stay in the room when things get uncomfortable. Someone who doesn't flee, shut down, or turn into a different person the second you express a need they can't immediately meet. Conflict tolerance means they can hear you're upset without treating it like a personal attack. They don't stonewall you. They don't leave mid-conversation. They sit with discomfort and work through it. This is about emotional regulation. When you bring up something that bothers you, their nervous system doesn't immediately go into fight or flight. They can tolerate the anxiety of not knowing how to fix it right away. They can sit in tension without needing to escape it. And look, this doesn't mean they're perfect or never get defensive. It means their default isn't to bolt or punish you for having feelings. They might need a minute to process, but they come back. They stay engaged. What you're seeing here is someone who's done their own emotional work. They've learned that conflict isn't catastrophic, it's information. When you tell them something hurt you, they don't hear you're a terrible person. They hear this is important to my partner. And that shift in perspective changes everything. Relationships don't fail because of conflict. They fail because one or both people can't tolerate the discomfort of working through it. Someone who can stay present during hard conversations is showing you they're capable of actual partnership. Proportional reactions. They don't explode over minor inconveniences or treat small mistakes like betrayals. When you're running late, they're annoyed but not enraged. When you forget something, they're disappointed but not devastated. Their emotional response actually matches the situation. There's no walking on eggshells wondering if today's small mistake will trigger a massive fight. You can predict how they'll react because their responses are reasonable and proportional to what actually happened. This is emotional regulation in action. They've learned to distinguish between actual threats and minor frustrations. When something bothers them, they express it without amplifying it into a catastrophe. They can say, "I'm irritated you canceled our plans," without spiraling into, "You never prioritize me, and this relationship is falling apart." They keep perspective. And when something genuinely serious happens, you can tell because their reaction escalates appropriately. You're not dealing with someone who treats everything like a crisis or nothing like it matters. What makes this so valuable is that it creates emotional safety. You're not constantly bracing for outsized reactions. You can be imperfect without fear of emotional punishment. And this comes from someone who's worked through their own triggers and trauma responses. They're not projecting past wounds onto present situations. They're responding to what's actually in front of them. When someone can match their emotional intensity to reality, that's maturity. That's someone who won't make you responsible for managing their dysregulation, independent goals. They've got their own life, not in the "I'm so mysterious and unavailable" way, but in the healthy "I have interests and ambitions that exist outside this relationship" way. They have friends they see regularly without you. They have the hobbies you're not part of. They're building something, whether it's a career, a creative project, or just a rich internal life. And crucially, they want you to have the same. They encourage your separate pursuits. They're not threatened when you need time alone or with your friends. This is a secure attachment showing up in daily life. They don't need to merge identities to feel close to you. They're not trying to become your everything or make you their everything. There's this understanding that two whole people make a healthier relationship than two halves trying to complete each other. They're genuinely interested in your growth, even when it doesn't directly benefit them or the relationship. They celebrate when you hit a goal that takes time away from a couple activities. What makes this a green flag is that it prevents codependency. When both people maintain separate identities, there's less resentment, less pressure, and more genuine appreciation when you do come together. You're choosing each other, not clinging out of emptiness. And weirdly, this independence creates more intimacy, not less, because you're sharing who you actually are, not performing a role. If someone respects your autonomy while building connection, that's maturity. By the way, if you're finding this helpful, I post content like this regularly. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. Thanks. Respectful disagreement. They can think you're wrong about something without making you feel stupid. When you disagree, they're genuinely curious about your perspective. Even if they don't share it, they'll say things like, "I see it differently, but help me understand your thinking." They're not trying to win. They're trying to understand. And when they challenge your viewpoint, it's thoughtful, not dismissive. There's this underlying respect that exists even in disagreement. This shows up in how they phrase things. Instead of "that's ridiculous," it's "I'm not sure I agree," because instead of "you're being irrational," it's "I'm struggling to follow your logic here. Can you walk me through it?" They validate your right to your opinion before presenting theirs. It's not about fake politeness. It's about genuine respect for your intelligence and autonomy. They don't need you to see everything their way to feel close to you. The reason this matters is because it shows they can hold complexity. They can love you deeply while disagreeing with you about politics, parenting styles, or whether pineapple belongs on pizza. They don't need total alignment to feel secure. And this creates safety for you to be honest. You're not performing an agreement to keep the peace. You can be yourself, including the parts that think differently than they do. Real intimacy requires room for difference. Someone who can disagree respectfully is giving you that room. Boring consistency. They do what they say they're going to do. Every time. If they say they'll text you later, they text you later. If they commit to plans, they show up. There are no wild promises followed by disappointing silence. No grand gestures that compensate for daily unreliability. They're just steady. And honestly, this is the least exciting green flag and also the most important, because consistency is how trust gets built. This person returns texts within a reasonable time frame. They show up when they say they will. They remember things you told them. None of this is dramatic or Instagram worthy, but it's what actually makes a relationship feel secure. You're not anxiously waiting for them to follow through. You're not making backup plans because you don't fully trust they'll show up. Their word means something, and they prove it through consistent action. What you're really seeing is emotional maturity and respect. They understand that your time and emotional energy matter. They're not flaky or self-centered. They've developed the basic life skill of reliability. And after you've been with someone whose affection comes in unpredictable bursts, whose promises mean nothing, whose presence is never guaranteed, boring consistency feels like actual love. Because it is. It's the foundation everything else gets built on. Life integration. They include you in their actual life, not just the fun parts. You meet their friends without it being a huge deal. They mention you to their family. They consider you when making plans, even small ones. It's not about rushing to move in together or meet parents on date 3. It's about this organic integration where you're not compartmentalized. You're part of their world, and they're building space for you in it naturally. This looks like them asking if you want to come to their friend's birthday party. It's them mentioning you in future plans without panic. It's them including you in conversations with people they care about. There's no hiding or separation between relationship you and real life them. And crucially, it happens at a healthy pace. Not the love bombing version where they're trying to lock you down immediately, but the secure attachment version where they're slowly, steadily making room for you. The psychology here is about commitment without fear. They're not keeping you at arm's length or treating the relationship like a separate entity from their life. They're integrating you because they want to, not because they're trying to prove something. And this creates actual intimacy. You're not dating a performance. You're dating a real person with a real life who's choosing to share it with you. That's the connection. Emotional transparency. They tell you when they're anxious, sad, or overwhelmed without turning it into your responsibility to fix. They can be vulnerable about their fears and insecurities in ways that feel honest, not manipulative. They don't wait until they're in crisis to finally share what's going on internally. There's this ongoing emotional honesty where you actually know what's happening with them. You're not guessing or managing their unexpressed feelings. This is different from trauma dumping or emotional unavailability. It's an appropriate vulnerability. They share their internal experience in ways that create intimacy without burdening you. They might say, "I'm feeling insecure about work stuff today. Just wanted you to know in case I seem off." They're giving you context without making you responsible for managing their emotions, and they do the same when things are good. They share joy, excitement, and hope. You get the full range. What makes this a green flag is that emotional honesty requires self-awareness and trust. They have to actually know what they're feeling, which takes work, and they have to trust you enough to share it, which takes security. People who are emotionally transparent are showing you they've done their internal work and they're choosing to let you in. You're building intimacy on truth, not projection or assumption, and that foundation holds. Genuine curiosity. They remember things you mentioned in passing 3 weeks ago and ask follow-up questions. When you talk about your day, they're actually listening, not just waiting for their turn to speak. They ask about your thoughts, not just your schedule. They want to understand how you see the world, what matters to you, what you're worried about or excited about. It's this consistent, genuine interest in who you are, not just what you do for them. This shows up in specific ways. You mentioned you have a meeting with your boss on Thursday, and on Thursday, they text asking how it went. You talk about a book you're reading, and days later, they bring it up again. They ask questions that show they were paying attention. They're curious about your opinions on things that don't directly affect them. It's not interrogation, it's care. They're studying you because they want to know you deeply. The reason this matters is because it makes you feel seen, not just loved in the abstract, but known specifically. They're not in love with the idea of you. They're interested in the actual you, including the boring parts, the complex parts, the parts that don't make sense yet. And that kind of sustained attention is intimate. It says, "You're worth understanding. Your inner world matters to me." If someone shows genuine curiosity about who you are, not just what you provide, that's someone who's safe to love. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing so you don't miss future uploads. Thanks for watching.